Live from Des Moines and Wells Fargo Arena, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski. That is Dan Lucero. We are here covering Kansas Jayhawks basketball on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. A little bit noisy, a little bit loud here in Des Moines today. Currently, the Texas Longhorns are in front of us practicing. KU just wrapped up their practice for the day. And Dan, we're looking ahead to tomorrow's matchup, number 1 versus number 16 in the West Regional as KU takes on Howard. And this is kind of a fascinating matchup for an opening round game between a 1 and 16. I'm not saying that I think Howard is going to be all that close to KU, but they're a big team, they're a long team, and they're a team that shoots a lot of threes, which is usually the recipe for those really low seeds to compete in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, if you're going to draw up the blueprint for how you upset number 1 seed, number 1 is make a ton of shots. And this Howard team, they shot more three-pointers and free throws this season. So that is what they're about. They shoot a ton of threes. Their practice session this morning was basically just a corner three-pointer derby. That was what they were doing. They were just shooting a ton of threes. So that is what they're going to have to do. And KU's players, coach is very aware of the necessity to go and guard the three-point line because, like you mentioned, they do have some size. They go 6'9", 6'10" up front. But the biggest thing that Kansas is going to have to be on guard for is getting out and challenging shooters because Kansas is not a great shooting team. They don't want to get into a three-point shooting contest with anybody in this tournament. That's a recipe for how they get beat.
And when we talk about defense, and I think offensively, I think KU is going to be all right in this game. Yes, Howard does have some size. They don't have a lot of size on the perimeter, though. So I think guys like Jalen Wilson trying to make things happen from outside in, I think that kind of stuff is going to work. Get downhill as much as possible. I think KU is going to be fine offensively in this matchup. But on defense, the number one thing to watch is Kevin McCullar returning to the lineup. As you saw at the Big 12 Tournament Championship game, he missed that due to some back spasms that really hampered him throughout the Big 12 Tournament. He's back. Sounds like there are no more spasms. Sounds like he's good to go. We asked Norm Roberts about this during the KU media session a little bit ago. You really cannot understate how important Kevin McCullar is to this team for KU in general, but especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, and it sounds like the news is as good as it can be for McCullar. He told media earlier today that his back feels good, that the back spasms that had dogged him the last week or so of the regular season and in the Big 12 tournament aren't really a factor for him right now. And that's the best news that KU could possibly get. He's the guy that puts it all together. Is he their best player? Is he their best shooter? Is he their tallest guy? No, he's not any of those things. But he's the guy that kind of makes it all make sense. He's the glue. I mean, Seth Davis called him the best glue guy in college basketball. And you saw what it looked like without him against Texas. The lineups, the rotations, how they defended. It just didn't make quite as much sense when Kevin McCullar wasn't on the floor. If he is fully healthy and ready to go, Kansas's lineups, the way they rotate, the way they defend, the way they score, the way they rebound, all of those things just tie together that much better. So it's great to hear the good news that Kevin McCullar's feeling well.
And the other thing about McCullar, too, is that when you get to the NCAA tournament, you need guys who make winning plays, and you need good guard play. Well, McCullar is going to play on the perimeter for the most part, and over the course of the season, that's just what he's been doing better than anybody else. You go all the way back to early in conference play against Texas Tech on the road, a game that obviously was meaningful for him. He comes up with a big bucket late. Against Oklahoma State early in the year, comes up with a big bucket late. KU essentially beat TCU in Fort Worth all because of Kevin McCullar and the incredible defensive game he played. You need guys like that. We know Wilson can be that guy. We know DeJuan Harris can be that guy. We've seen them do it on the grandest stage in college basketball. So getting that third guy in Kevin McCullar who you trust can make those plays makes a massive difference this time of year.
Yeah, another guy dinged up too we're talking about here is Grady Dick. Grady Dick dealt with a little bit of back tightness in the Big 12 tournament. That's been documented. All accounts, he looks good, feels good, and he's ready to go. And so for Kansas team playing a team that likes to shoot the three-pointer a lot, their equalizer from behind the arc is going to be Grady Dick. Kansas can be really good if Jalen Wilson scores and Grady Dick scores, but when it's just Jalen Wilson, it looks a little iffier. They have to get that secondary scoring from somewhere. Grady Dick's the best option to get that for them, and I think he's going to be a mismatch problem for Howard tomorrow.
And in this particular game, too, and you mentioned Texas in that Big 12 championship game, we're seeing them right in front of us right now practicing in Des Moines. Look, this team is huge. They've got size. They've got shot makers. They can really make things difficult for a guy like Grady Dick, who's not a huge body. He's tall, he's long, but he's not a big guy. They can really complicate things for him. They can make things a little bit more stressful against a team like Howard. And this doesn't, not intending to say, Howard sucks, Howard's no good, anything like that. But they don't have that same kind of size. They don't have that same kind of ability on both ends of the floor to frustrate you the way a Texas possibly can. So I think with Grady Dick, you can almost use him with brute force. Just get him the ball. Grady, if there's a driving lane, go downhill, attack. They will not stop you. If you have a sliver of space, shoot it. They're not going to make your life hell on the outside. I think you can almost jam Grady Dick into the game plan here and make it work.
Yeah, I think Grady's better when he gets downhill, when he scores inside the arc early in a game, gets him into a good rhythm and opens up everything else on the court for him. If they're just using him as a spot-up shooter, I think he gets a little stagnant, and I don't think he's quite in the flow of the game in the same way. So I really do like the idea of getting Grady Dick involved all over the floor in a lot of different spots on offense, get him a lot of different shots, and get him that confidence, because in the first two games of the Big 12 tournament, he was as good as any player on the court for Kansas, and he is capable of being, again, that second scoring option. Take some of the heat off of Jalen Wilson.
Now, one thing that has been a problem for KU all year, and we know that depth is far less important when you get to the NCAA tournament. KU won last year essentially with a six-man rotation with a sprinkle of Mitch Lightfoot when David McCormick needed a breather. That was essentially a 6.5-man rotation. KU won the national title with that group. The bench has been a problem all year long for KU. I don't know that this group has enough just complete total 1 through 5 talent like last year's team did. So do you feel like we might need to see a little bit more, maybe not even in this first game against Howard, although that would be nice to see, but as this tournament goes on, will we need to see, Joseph Yesufu, you need 5 to 10 good minutes. Bobby Pettiford, need 5 to 10 good minutes. Ernest Uday, same thing. Is that going to be necessary, or do you think with the amount of breaks you get during the tournament, KU might be able to survive essentially with just 5 guys?
It'll be interesting to see how Bill Self handles that. I think with Joseph Yesufu, you got a guy with a certain amount of comfort level. This isn't his home arena when he played at Drake, but obviously Drake University, where Joseph Yesufu transferred from, is right here in Des Moines. So he's going to have a little bit of a hometown fan base. I think there were some fans calling out to him during the Kansas practice earlier today. So maybe a comfort level for Joseph Yesufu gives him an opportunity to contribute in a positive way here in this opening weekend. But yeah, I think they're going to need something. The less you need Jalen Wilson to carry all the weight, the better Kansas has been, whether that's been Grady Dick or Kevin McCullar or good offensive performances from DeJuan Harris. Just a little bit of easing that burden goes a long way for this Kansas team. And I think that Joseph Yesufu can certainly be a part of that. I think Ernest Uday has been a part of that, and I think he'll help against a bigger team. And like we talked about, Howard's got a little bit of size. Uday's minutes, I think, are going to be important.
You do mention Bill Self, and that's really the last big key thing we need to get to here. Bill Self, day-to-day, according to Norm Roberts. We all know at this point about the cardiovascular issue that Self dealt with last week that kept him out of the Big 12 tournament, had the stents put in. Sounds like he is doing much better. He is here in Des Moines. He worked with the team on Wednesday before they had the open practice, but he did see the team. He's been talking to the team, and according to Norm Roberts, the player said that he's been riding them plenty hard as well, so no differences there. We do not know for certain that he is going to coach on Thursday. I think at this point KU would like that to be the case, and obviously you want him to be as healthy as possible in general. Again, I don't mean to put Howard down. They've had a great year, their most wins as a program in a single year in 50 seasons, but I do believe that KU with this talent, with this program, with this pedigree, probably can win an opening round game against a 16 seed with Norm Roberts on the bench.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, right? And Norm Roberts isn't like, it's not like having me be the head coach where I don't know any plays or how to use a timeout and any of those things. Like Norm Roberts has done this. He's been there. He's done that as a head coach, and he shepherded KU to a 6-1 record when he was the main guy on the sideline this season. So yeah, KU's just fine for as long as Norm Roberts has to be on the coach, or be on the bench. But for further into the tournament, you feel a lot better with a guy with 2 rings making decisions and making in-game adjustments in particular, which is what Bill Self is so great at and why he's the coach that he is.
And honestly, on the court, you've got Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris out there. That helps quite a bit too. And you're talking about getting guys in the right spot, getting plays set up. We're going to have full coverage of KU versus Howard and plenty of sirens, everything else that comes with basketball arenas coming up on a 580 Sports Talk following the KU game. Game is at 1, so we'll be on right about on time at 3 o'clock coming up on Thursday. Of course, on our website as well, go check out our preview pieces. Check them out on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube channel, and of course, 580WIBW.com as well. We will talk to you on Thursday from Des Moines, but until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski saying so long for now.